My name is David Knowles, and this is Ukraine, the latest.
Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной...
This hideous and barbaric venture of Vladimir Putin must end in failure.
Nobody's going to break us. We're strong. We're Ukrainians.
Today is a special episode of Ukraine the Latest. It's a bank holiday in the UK, so instead of our usual live podcast on the latest developments across the country, we have an interview with Danielle Sheridan, the Telegraph's defence and political correspondent, who's on the ground in Ukraine with her colleague and translator, Irena Ukhina. We spoke about life in Ukraine, journalism in the war zone, and how their team, together with photographer Paul Grover, worked to shed light on the atrocities perpetuated by Russian troops across the country. Listener discretion is advised. There are graphic descriptions of extreme violence.
My name is Irena Ukhina and I'm from Ternopil. I'm working as a news correspondent on the national TV channel Ukraine. And the last 2 years we also have a news TV channel, Ukraine 24. We made news stories about pensions, we talk about new strains of coronavirus, made materials about the economics, energy and politics, but now, when the Russian full-scale invasion in Ukraine started, all Ukrainian TV channels, a lot of 6 of them, I think so, or 7 national TV channels, we have joined our forces to talk about the war in Ukraine around the clock, 24 hours per day, 7 days a week. So every day we telling people about which cities were bombed, how many people were died, how Russian soldiers raped and tortured our children, women and men. When we are talking about our daily routine now, we don't have exact time when our work is started and when it will end, because TV channels speak alternatively. Our broadcast can begin at 3 a.m. and ends in 8 a.m. and the next day it could be from 5 p.m. till 12 p.m. It depends, but it's not hard for us to wake up at night or go to sleep in early morning or at night. It is not hard to see destroyed houses, but it is hard to hear a lot of people's stories when they tell us that their parents have died, or when we heard about a 23-year-old girl which was probably raped by Russian soldiers, which was tortured, that police told them, the parents said that police told them about that Russian soldiers shooted legs of these girls and gave her tourniquets to stop the bleeding. And then she was probably raped and then shooted. And it's hard. It's hard to, when you hear about 11 years old boy whose hair become gray because he saw when Russian soldiers raped his mother. It was in front of his eyes. Or when we see photos of a 10-year-old girl without clothes. It is hard for us emotionally, but for example, me, I try to block emotions when I talk to people, because I know it is my job and I have to do this. I have to give the information for other Ukrainians, for foreign people. When I go to my work, I try to make photos and videos which will show the whole scale of Russian invasion, to trying to convince people to tell their terrifying stories, because we know that the world must hear it, must hear these stories.
And for you personally, what's been your experience with your friends and family? Would you give a sense to our listeners about how the war has impacted the people in your life that are close to you?
My family is safe now. My grandmother, grandfather live in Ternopil. It is in the west of Ukraine. But my sister was with me in Kyiv when the full-scale invasion was started. 15 minutes from our apartment where we were staying is Irpin, Bucha, then Warzen and Hostomel. So from the very beginning, from the very first day, we heard bombs was falling when our air defense was working to the Irpin. Our windows were shaking, but our house is staying. But my colleagues' houses were destroyed. It was hard when we were searching for our cameraman, which was in Hostomel, and we haven't heard about him for 7 days. And then, unfortunately, he was found alive with his family. But I don't know what happens with other cameraman. I don't hear the last information about him. We also tried to find where he is, because he is from Ivankiv. It is on the north of Ukraine. It's close in it is in a halfway road from Chernobyl to Kyiv. I have a colleague which grandmother was dead because of the war, and so on. It is hard.
I have a question for you, if you're willing to talk about it. You mentioned that your boyfriend obviously works currently in media, but that if there's a third mobilization, he might be called forward to fight. Like, what does that feel like?
It is hard because I'm terrified of this, but I will not forbid him to do this, because he will fight for Ukraine if it will be needed. But I know that when will be the third wave of mobilization, they will fight on the east of Ukraine and in the south, and it will be very hard.
Thank you, Danielle, for that question. What's it been like, Irena, working with Danielle and Danielle as well? What's it as a team? How is that actually? Could you give our listeners a sense of what you've been doing together and some of the challenges you've overcome? Yeah, I can see you're both smiling.
Danielle cries even more times than me. I was not crying when I was talking to people, because of that I saw a lot of pictures before. I saw a lot of videos before. I heard a lot of stories before. So I was prepared, because foreign journalists, they have an information about Ukraine, maybe when they are preparing to come here and when they are staying. But we listen to this information 24 hours per day. I have heard so many terrified stories that I can't even hate now Russian soldiers in Russia. I don't have
Are you trying
so much strength to hate them.
Yeah.
Because it is out of the words. I don't know how to explain how Ukrainians hate Russians because of what they are doing. And about the question about about the work with Danielle. She's very sweet. She's very professional journalist. She every time she wanted to talk to people, that is how she's making her stories, because she didn't come to Lviv and then to Kyiv to talk to persons which don't I don't know how to say. She come to hear stories at the field.
On the field,
yes. And she's brave, because we were coming to Bucha in the curfew. In the first day she came to Kyiv. We were in Borodyanka, we were in Chernihiv region, where 80% of houses of villages were destroyed. So I think that the way that Danielle doing her job is very professional.
Дякую.
And I teach her Ukrainian words.
And Danielle, what's it been like working with Irena? Let's hear the other side of the story as well.
Sometimes I feel like you must be exhausted because we go into a scenario where I want to interview somebody and I'm just pummeling you with questions and I'm like, right, ask them this now. Okay, ask them this. And it's very kind of strenuous work and you're having to ask these really difficult questions and then translate it all to me in English. And then you don't get a second to breathe before I'm like, okay, this is what I want you to ask them back. And I see your mind like working and like how to phrase it in Ukrainian. And so I just, I think, and you do look really tired at the end of each day. And I think that's because of we're obviously working you very hard. But this job couldn't be done without someone that speaks the Ukrainian language. So you also really convey the kind of delicate nature of the questions that we're asking. I can't understand what you're saying to the person, but I can see the tone of your voice and the facial expression, and that's important as well because so much of what you get out of someone is how you treat them when questioning them about a story. So I think we work really well together. And Paul is being shy and doesn't want to talk because we're obviously in the car right now on the side of the road in Ukraine. But I think the three of us work really well together, and Paul is just capturing the most amazing pictures that really show the kind of fragility of the civilization over here right now. And you see it in the paper every day. I mean, what we've got in the paper today at a girl's funeral after she was tortured and murdered, and just being able to capture the pain on the parents' faces in a photo is really impressive. And so rightly so, they were given a whole spread.
For that story in particular, can you tell us a little bit about that? How do you ask how do you translate a question? How do you find the right words and the right phrasing to talk to parents about something like that?
When I'm talking to you, it's weird. Like I'll be asking the question, looking at the parents, but in English, and then I turn to Irena, and there's this like moment of connection I see between our eyes where you're like, okay, now I'm going to ask them a really difficult question.
Yes, there are moments when Danielle asks some questions and I understand in my head that this question is so hard to tell the parents. So I need to make this question more sensitive, more polite. Sometimes I have to call people I don't know and ask details about someone's death or deaths of their children, and I don't know even how to say hi to them, because in Ukrainian language we don't say hi to people we don't know. We say like good morning or good evening. I don't know how to say the words without good, because we can't say morning or afternoon. I don't know how to say good morning to them when I know that the child of this mother was tortured and killed, and there will be funeral in this or the next day. Or when I try to find other words, it can be Vitayu, but Vitayu, it's congratulations. How I can say congratulations to that woman? And when Danielle asked me when someone's house was destroyed, and she asked them how they feel.
How do they feel?
How do they feel? And I think first thing thought in my mind is how they could feel. And then I need to ask them, and the people also says, so how can I feel? And it's also hard.
Yeah, it's kind of that's a tricky question. How do you feel? Because everyone's like, well, how do you think I feel? I feel shit. My house has been destroyed. My daughter's been murdered. But then people do elaborate on exactly how they feel. And the piece that I ended with today about Karina, the 23-year-old that was murdered, her mother said at the end, what can I feel? I've cried everything in my body. I've got no tears left. And I just thought that was so powerful. Even though she, like, in saying so few words, she actually said so much.
I just have another question, and this is just because I think part of what's interesting about this is it'll give our listeners a sense of just how you work. and what journalism looks like. So when you're looking for stories or when you're going to places, how does that work exactly? Danielle, Irena, are you sort of are there dictates coming down from London from the editor saying, well, we want you here, we want you here, or do you get more freedom than that? Are you telling them, well, this is really interesting, I'm going to be over here? I guess my question is, to what extent is it managed, and to what extent are you being quite spontaneous?
No, it's been really lovely to have such a mature professional relationship with our news editors, where they want us to pursue a story that we have the idea for. Obviously, like longer term projects, they might, like for example, we wrote about mines the other day, and Memphis had suggested that was an area we looked into, but they are saying, please, they welcome ideas from us. So that's been really amazing. And just seeing, the support that we get, and we come to them with a great story, and they commission pictures and over 1,000 words and all of that. So I would say each morning we're not being told you need to do this. We're saying we are going to do this. We've seen this. I think it's interesting, and then they're saying, okay, go for it. And we have to check in each day and night from a safety point of view. But that's how it works.
And in a lot of moments, we just have to go to some place which was under temporary occupation of Russian soldiers, or which was really bombed. That is how we came to Borodyanka. And the second day we came to Kyiv. We tried to enter Borodyanka so hard. It takes us 3 hours or 4 hours because a lot of bridges are bombed. So when we entered Borodyanka, we were in shock, every of us, because there are buildings which have only sides of it, not the main part of buildings are fully destroyed, and people are underground still. A lot of people still underground. In a lot of moments, we pick up stories from the field. Because when we came to Andriivka, Lipivka, and Korolivka, they are villages in Kyiv region, we were just crossing the streets and asking people. And that is the place in Andriivka where Russian soldiers dig a big hole and said that it will be a mass grave for all of you in that village.
That's not so different to how I used to approach stories when I was a general reporter, just literally door knocking and just speaking to people on the ground and seeing if they have anything they want to tell you.
I thought, Danielle, what you said about how do you feel is such a powerful question, because it can, although it's potentially a bit blunt and potentially a bit simple, it opens up the avenues for people to talk about it. So, Irena, if you're comfortable, how do you feel right now?
It is not a simple question, because I even don't know for myself how I feel. Maybe that is why I'm trying to work hard every day from the morning till night. I'm not involve myself to feel.
You're not allowing yourself.
I'm not allowing myself to feel a lot, because if I will cry when I will be live on TV, it makes no sense, because I need to do my work. But what I can truly said for sure, that a lot of people in Ukraine, the point that a lot of foreign journalists, when they are talking about war in Ukraine, they are talking about the war as they think, which started the 24th of February 2022. But everybody needs to understand that the war, Russian war against Ukraine, started in 2014. We are living with this war for 8 years. Our soldiers was dying these all 8 years. Our civilians also. So that is why we try to explain that this is not the start of the war. The war, this is only another part of the war, a full-scale invasion. The attention to this war started when our houses just were ruined and bombed every day from the morning till the evening, when our civilians died, not 10, 12, 100 people. There are thousands, because we don't know the situation in a lot of regions. For example, we don't know the situation in Mariupol because Russian soldiers are using now their transporting crematoriums to hide their criminals. So I don't know how to say how I feel. For me, I don't want to talk with any Russian people. I hate them. I wanted them to leave our country alone. We are not fraternal people with Russia. We are not a part of Russia, as a lot of people were thinking about. The Russian Federation, before the Soviet Union, and before that, the Russian Empire, they were destroying Ukrainian language, Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian cultural figures for years, for even centuries. Our history started 1,500 years ago from Kyievska Rus. And Kyievska Rus doesn't have any connection with Russian Federation, because the Russian Federation has connections with Moscovia, which has maybe 500 years history, and to compare with Ukrainian history. So the first mention about Ukraine was in 1187, and the first mention about Russian Federation was in 1387. Kyiv is 1,539 years old, and Moscow is 875 years old. Ukrainian currency hryvnia was appear at 1130, and Russian currency ruble was appear in 1654. Ukrainian language started to create in 6th century, and Russian language started to create in 12th century. So feel the difference. Mm-hmm. And that history of Ukraine that Russia wants to take for them, it's not working. And people in all the world must to know the true history, must to search for it. And this is also a task for us, for Ukrainian journalists, to tell people about it.
Thanks to Danielle and Irena for their time there. Just to say, Monday is another bank holiday in the United Kingdom, so Ukraine the Latest will return on Tuesday, the 19th of April. Ukraine the Latest is an original podcast from The Telegraph. To stay on top of all of our Ukraine news, analysis and dispatches from the ground, subscribe to The Telegraph. You can get your first 30 days completely free at telegraph.co.uk/audio, or sign up to Dispatches, our daily Ukraine newsletter, which brings stories from our award-winning foreign correspondents straight to your inbox. You can listen to this conversation live at 1 p.m. each weekday on Twitter Spaces. Follow The Telegraph on Twitter so that you don't miss it. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider following Ukraine the Latest on your preferred podcast app and leave a review, as it helps others find the show. You can also get in touch directly with us by emailing podcasts@telegraph.co.uk. We do read every message. Ukraine the Latest is produced by Louisa Wells and Giles Gear, and on Twitter, Sophie Coe.